Yeah, welcome to Down Your Throat. I'm Cammy, and with me today...
Hey, Cameron.
Hello. Shut up, I'm introing the show. This is Chris, my best friend. So, you have a piano there?
No. What are you talking about?
Oh. Well, this is Chris. Oh, okay. And... Beautiful. And this show is about making people vegan. And this, as Chris may or may not have said, depending on how I cut this episode, we have already had a conversation. And I don't want to make Chris repeat everything he just said. So...
Cut to that.
Cut to that.
And then we'll cut back. Yeah, go.
Blue, 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 blue. Oh, could you do a piano, like, flashback noise?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Get that.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but...
Hold on. No, I'm ready for that. Don't you worry. I just want to say, this conversation is coming off, is the continuation of an earlier conversation, perhaps the first conversation of this podcast series ever. Right. And that conversation was coming on the heels of another debate show that we've been doing. Mm-hmm. And I was taking the affirmative route, and I was giving no ground, and I was just like, I was in a debate of all times, and it, knowing
Sure.
us, it got very unruly. But I would say that generally, I think from my perspective, I mean, if this is also more personal, which it seems like makes sense, from my perspective, I'll say it's hard. There's not a lot of ethical or moral high ground on the carnivorous side of things. And, from a climate perspective and from many moral and ethical points of view, veganism absolutely makes sense, in where we are in the world in this century, what's to come, for so many reasons. I think there's a lot still to learn, but, I can see that, and I agree with that. I have my own reasons for what I eat and don't eat, but I'm always happy to talk about them, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Well, I guess since I should have. Well, let me intro the show. Here we go.
Oh, that's not even gonna.
Well, no, it is. But that's kind of that's why I was going to interrupt you. But maybe I'll cut it in some weird way or something. I don't know. That was perfect.
Works.
Okay. And then we'll flash forward. I guess using the same noise maybe, or unless you have a different
one. That would be this one. Okay.
Perfect. And we're back.
That was a good one.
Okay. Are we back? Are we now back in time, or where in time?
Yeah,
are
I
we
think
right
that's
now?
back. Yeah, we're we're back. We're back in time, baby.
Okay. So this is the past? Are we redoing?
We already went back, and now we went back again. Now we're back in the present.
Okay, we're back to the future. Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, wow. I see how you did that.
I don't know. I've never heard of that movie. I don't know what you're talking about. So, listen. Yeah, that all makes sense to me. I'm trying to remember what you just said in the chronology of the podcast. So okay, from what so what you just said there, you said you don't know if there's a lot of moral high ground for the carnivore or meat eating path. Now, if that's true, then ¿por qué tú es le carne eater?
Yes, fair question in any language you want to ask it. For me, I would say, personally, I feel like a moral place that feels more okay than not for me personally is the sort of scenario where the animals that I would actually be able to kill myself and be okay with killing should be perhaps the ones that I'm consuming, or any life form, plant, whatever, like I'm harvesting and killing it.
Okay.
And if I'm not able to, maybe I could say like the animals that I wouldn't be able to do that, just, have a farm and raise and, be living among the animals, with the animals, raising animals, domestic animals and others, like I should not eat those animals. And I could see, or not just eat those animals, but use those animals' products, the fruits of their animal lives.
That sounds fair. So which animals can you kill and do those things to?
I think fish, I definitely can. I think chickens, I probably wouldn't kill them often, but because I would just have them around and, benefit from their eggs, eating the eggs.
Okay.
And I might kill them every now and then. And then I probably wouldn't kill horses, dogs, cats, probably not even cows, especially if they were a source of milk and calcium for the
So what's the difference for you between the ones that you wouldn't and the ones that you would? It's I'm guessing my guess is intelligence level or something like that.
Yeah, like a level of consciousness, and also just following this sort of I guess a principle of living in kind of the argument that we had touched on last time, but
you could apply that same
living in
like shepherding them through life is kind of
that's not necessarily a word. I wouldn't even use that word maybe again in retrospect, but like the idea of living with the animals, raising animals, and there are certain animals that I mean, yes, it has to do with intelligence, but there are other animals that you wouldn't want to kill just because they're beneficial to humans to keep around. I mean, to put it bluntly, I guess.
So that's
not obvious.
So why wouldn't
one
you,
of the reasons?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't kill. So you wouldn't kill cows and these other guys, and you would kill fish and chickens. And so I'm trying to figure out. So I'm trying to figure out what are the particular things that make that make that difference. The first thing you said was a level of consciousness. Is that the only thing, or is there? You also said their benefit to us. Are those like
their value on the farm? They're like their place on the farm, their role on the farm. I'm using farm as a stand-in for like living amongst humans.
Do you feel like the animals' lives are worth more than do you feel like an animal's life is worth more than just what it provides to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so because
it provides to other animals, insects, nature. I mean, it has a role in the it's.
Do you think there's anything? What about
its
its desire to live? And it's like, do you give any credence to that? And like I guess what I'm saying, like the maybe the value of life, or as Jeremy put it, the sanctity of life. Do you give any credibility to that, or do you feel like it's more complicated than I'm putting it?
I think it's more complicated than how you're putting it, because you're attaching very human words.
Which ones are human?
You attached particularly a very human word, which was desire. You
don't feel like animals desire things?
That's a hard thing. I feel like that's a hard thing. I feel like this is where we start to get into kind of murky waters, or at least disagreement, because for me, I feel like that's a hard thing. That's a spectrum, and that's also a very complicated thing to define, because there's some desires that the animals feel just naturally, like the reptilian level of our brains, even as humans, like desires things even without our conscious maybe awareness. I feel in animals, maybe it's entirely that way for some species. For other species, maybe like pigs, they are actually very they are more capable of showing these what we would think of as human emotions, or what we might attach desires or other more human emotions to. But even at that level of a pig, I think it's difficult to, at least for me, I haven't read enough or studied enough science to know that.
Okay, but what about just more basic, maybe not complex emotional desires and stuff that we can't really know about animals, but what about basic desires like the desire to avoid suffering and the desire to, have a decent life? Do you feel like we can't apply those desires to animals?
I don't feel, not broadly so, not the way that you're describing it. I don't think you could say that statement about a fish.
Why not?
Because I don't think the fish is advanced enough to feel any of those things. I think the fish may respond to pain. The fish may respond to pain. The fish may like an algorithm. The fish may be running a program. I mean, now we're getting into murky waters because we're comparing science to computers, but it's like the fish is running a script and is alert and present to things, but like also avoiding just dying. But like a desire, when you touch the word a desire, I think it's a uniquely human experience, and I think it becomes more complicated.
Why is desire human? So you don't feel like a pig desires to avoid pain. You don't feel like a pig has a desire to have things. A dog desires a bone. You don't feel like that's desire?
I feel like a fish. No, I feel like a fish, dogs and pigs. I mean, if we're simplifying it, which I don't even think is, I don't know if it's the case, but like if we're simplifying it on a spectrum, like a dog might feel what could be more closely associated with human desire than a fish.
I'm not saying human desire. I'm just saying desire, right? Like, what is desire? I'm trying to understand why you're suggesting that animals don't have desires, and I'm giving the example like what's an easier example for me, which is like, okay, are you saying that a dog does not desire a bone? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that you're applying the word desire, I think, rather broadly
want, I guess.
to all
what
animals.
What word do you want me to use? How about want? Does a dog want a bone? Like, I don't understand I'm kind of getting
complicated situation. I think it's a complicated situation because, like, why does a fish? Let me ask a question then.
Okay.
Why does a fish avert? Like, why does a fish eat? Why does a fish avert? Predators. How does a fish feel pain, and what is it like? Those are my questions to you.
Well, my answers would be like, why does it avoid those things? Because it doesn't want to experience those things, right? Like, why do we avoid those things? Because we don't want to experience pain and suffering. So we avoid the things we don't want to experience, and we go towards the things we do want to experience. And basically, every single animal that I'm aware of does that thing.
Yeah, but your reason for your answers to those questions immediately put them in parallel with humans.
No, I don't understand what you mean by parallel with humans. In what sense? Do you mean in the sense that I'm saying that humans want something and then animals want something? Like we both want something and then suddenly I'm saying they're equal? It's like...
Well, you're saying the answers to the questions that I posed, your answers were that, what was it? What did you say? I mean, let's rewind the tape here. Do you remember exactly the wording you choose for fish?
Desire.
Why a fish runs?
We were talking about desire, like what we were talking about desire and whether or not animals desire things, and you were saying that. Like,
Go
ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
You were saying like, well, how do we know that an animal desire? Or you were saying like desire is a very human thing, and then I was like, okay, well, we can use another word, I guess, if you want. We could use the word want.
Okay, Let me put it another. Let me try another path. Okay. I am not a neuroscientist at all. I mean, as I'm sure you will make clear now that I'm saying.
I mean, neither am I. Neither am I.
And neither of us are. But from what I do understand of modern science, there are different parts of the brain. There's a part of the brain that they colloquially refer to as the reptilian brain that. I mean, you could apply the word desire to that part of the brain, but there are sort of these impulses that humans feel that are so deeply rooted in our physiology and in our brain chemistry that we're reacting to them as if we're on a script. Like the same reason a mother has a rush of these complex emotions and feelings when she hears a baby cry, and maybe she doesn't feel that way when she's not with child or with like she's particularly alert. Like nature creates these programmings for us as human beings to be responsive to these things. They're not necessarily conscious. So when I talk about desire, I'm thinking like, I think we're on the same page. I just think that word is, I guess, what I'm saying is a very uniquely human word, and I think we have to look for a better word because it's like more of a.
What's a better word?
I would say a response. I would say a response to. I would say like some animals.
A totally different word.
Yeah.
So animals respond to pain. So you're saying now that a pig responds to pain, but it doesn't desire to not feel pain. That's what you're saying.
It doesn't desire. Like, does the pig get hurt and then think consciously the thought, I do not want to feel this way? Is that what you're asking me?
I'm giving you the words that you're giving me back in hopes,
or at least. What's the question that you're asking me?
You're telling me that animals do not have desire because desire is a human concept, and we can't apply desire.
I didn't say broadly. I said desire is a spectrum, and I said there were some animals, if you replay it, there are some animals that I would assume are the way they feel and respond to things is more closely aligned with maybe a human response, or what we call desire as humans, is what I said. Some animals feel more of that than others.
So I don't understand what your ultimate point here is. Your ultimate point
My ultimate point is pretty simple. Is like, it's a spectrum. The situation is not black or white.
That's fine.
It's a spectrum.
We can call it a spectrum.
Me personally,
I don't really. That's fine with me. I don't really
I'm not
mind
getting
if you
mad.
want to call it. But you're saying that
let me finish my point, though.
Okay.
No, I'm not saying anything you're saying. I'm just saying my point is simply that it's a spectrum, and for me, the sort of moral compass for me is like, I'm probably not as okay with eating animals. Like, I wouldn't eat a dolphin. Like, I'm not okay with eating. I'm less okay with eating.
No,
animals
I understand that aspect. I understand that part.
Okay, all right.
The part that I'm not getting, right? The part that so why are you not okay with eating a dolphin? I guess I'm confused now, because I'm trying to nail down what your actual moral kind of perspective on this is, and I don't get it. So why would you not eat a dolphin?
Well, unless, again, caveat, unless I was in a situation where I was stranded and I had to eat dolphin in order to assert a survivalist argument. Yeah. Sure.
Ignoring that.
Well, I don't even know if we're on the same page as far as that. Aside from that, I probably wouldn't eat a dolphin because I associate them to be like they're incredibly intelligent. They've been proven to be incredibly intelligent. I mean, octopuses now are being shown to be incredibly intelligent, and also to have a level of consciousness.
Intelligence and consciousness.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So intelligence and consciousness, that's the thing that is making it feel like not okay when you eat a dolphin, yes?
And it's also like it's not really, depending on what the circumstances of your geography are, you may not be, you're talking
about survival again.
No, I'm not talking about survival. I'm talking about more of like, this is more like the industrialization thing. It's like to eat a dolphin, you have this whole infrastructure. It's like, why should that infrastructure be present? For me to eat this dolphin, it doesn't necessarily like, this isn't an animal that I don't want to eat because I feel like it has a level of consciousness that it doesn't have a history of, like, it also doesn't have a history of living with humans and living alongside humans. So because it doesn't have a history with living with humans,
that's what makes it okay to. That's what makes you feel.
You keep just saying just one thing. It's more than just one thing.
I'm not saying it's one thing. I'm just repeating back to you the point that you're making in trying to understand it. So you're saying the thing that makes it not okay with dolphins is because, like the last thing you said, one of the things that makes it not okay with to treat dolphins the way we treat other animals, you said the intelligence and consciousness, but then you also said we have no history doing it to them or being with them or interacting
living
with them.
Alongside them.
Like
raising them.
So basically treating, when you say raising them, treating them, farming them basically. Right, we have no history farming them, and so that means it's not okay. Why create the whole
farming them? You mean farming them? You mean what exactly? Raising them to slaughter them?
Yes, I'm talking about the point you were making.
Well, there are some animals that we don't kill. There's some animals that we live alongside. So.
Let's maybe go to the intelligence and consciousness thing, because I don't understand the second point you're making. So intelligence and consciousness, you're saying it's not okay to kill a dolphin or eat a dolphin because they're intelligent and conscious enough to be afforded your kind of moral consideration. Is that fair?
To be afforded my moral consideration.
Your compassion. To be
afforded the level of moral consideration to not eat. Yes.
Okay. And so that obviously does not, for you there's a spectrum, and somewhere along that spectrum it becomes okay to farm animals for food and slaughter and kill them for food. So for you, the spectrum is not at the level of cows, it's a little farther down. Obviously, so dogs, cows, these are things that are obviously not okay for you. Or maybe you're still not sure about cows. I'm not clear yet. And then for you, it sounds like chickens and fish. That's where it's like, okay, if you're as intelligent as a chicken or a fish, then I can farm you and eat you. Is that kind of the idea?
Well, that's one of the ideas. Yeah. I mean, you're saying farm, but there could be a lot of other circumstances. Like you can catch wild fish. You don't need to farm them.
Sure. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Slaughtering for food. I guess we'll put it like that. If you're a chicken,
yes.
Okay. So, and I guess for me personally, I'm trying to understand what the delineation is between the chicken and the fish and the cow. Like, where is it becoming the case? Like, how are you know what I'm saying? Like, how is the reconciliation? Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question for you, because maybe this would highlight some of the, this would be helpful for me even. Why are you, let's assume you have a farm and you are raising chickens, for example. Why is it not okay for you to, let's say, eat the chicken eggs? That the chickens are creating.
I could have this argument with you,
like,
but yeah, we could
bring it down. Why is it okay not to eat the trout? I don't understand how.
Okay, but I feel like it's a super unfair thing to say that right now, after, like, immediately after I ask you a question, and then you don't answer my question, and then you bring it to a totally separate issue rather than answering my question.
Okay, well, I can answer your question. I felt like we were getting bogged down. So
I disagree.
Your question is, why is it?
It's like the question I asked is literally for me the whole central point here. So for you to feel like, that's us getting bogged down, is like, okay.
Well, we can return to this other question, but I'll answer.
Yeah.
I'll answer this. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You're saying, what is the basic difference between the cow, the chicken, and what was the other one? The pig?
Yeah, like, what is it that makes it okay for the cow, like, not okay for the cow, but then suddenly it's okay for the chicken and the fish?
Well, I think we just talked about those two. That's what we just.
Okay. So intelligence and got you. So it's intelligence, consciousness, and then the cow is it reaches a level of intelligence and consciousness for you that justifies the. Okay, got it. So I guess my next question.
And also, it's the slaughtering thing. It's like it's the thing that, to answer more fully, is like, it does also come down to a respect, I think, for the animal and for living with that animal and for benefiting from each other's existence. I mean, the chicken benefits from the human, you could argue. The human obviously benefits from the chicken, assuming you're living in a more symbiotic
but you could do the same,
relationship.
I don't understand. You could do the same thing with the cow, though.
Well, let me finish what I'm saying. Yes, and you could live with and I'm saying, for me, that is. It seems like if I was more pure and I was living with the cow, I wouldn't kill the cow. I don't think I would kill the cow. I mean, I'm trying to illuminate why I wouldn't do the cow and why I would maybe potentially kill the chicken. But
because it's more intelligent and more conscious, you said.
Yeah, and also it's more like, it's just a large creature. It's difficult and cumbersome to slaughter. I think it's at a higher level of conscious. Well, it's many things. It's at a higher level of consciousness, perhaps. The milk is very useful for us as humans. You can cook a lot of delicious things.
Hold on, you're being very confusing here. You're being extremely confusing, because you're saying. I don't understand what we're debating anymore. I'm asking you. Okay. You're saying you're not okay with killing a cow, right? But now you're talking about cows are very useful to us, and I'm just trying to be very specific here for so we can kind of nail down some issues.
That was I just gave you more.
Telling me the cow is useful doesn't explain why you're okay with killing a chicken. It doesn't help me understand. Do you understand? Do you know why? Does that make sense? Like, I'm trying to understand why is it so the things you said before you started getting into like the cow is useful and all that, you said the cow is more intelligent and more conscious, and then you said a cow is more difficult to kill. Those are the two things that feel to me relevant to the question I asked. Are there any further? Was there a third thing I didn't?
If those feel relevant, let's focus on those.
Okay,
that's great.
The difficulty to kill thing, I find it very confusing why that would somehow come into play after the level of intelligence and consciousness thing, because you're saying like, okay, well, I respect that a cow is more intelligent and conscious, but if it was easier to kill, I would do it. Is that the idea?
I think the idea is me thinking about a personal kind of moral system in which I just only eat the animals that I'm personally laying the hands at.
I'm just asking about when you talk about the difficulty thing. I'm trying to ask about the difficulty.
Yeah,
thing.
That's what I'm saying. In this morality of mine that I've pitched, that I presented, it's like, if I can kill an animal, I'm going to eat it. So
but that doesn't.
If I can, Yeah, it does.
I see what you're saying. Okay, because it's hard, because you might not be able to kill a cow, I guess.
Yeah, like then it's not. Yeah,
Okay.
it's not for me to. It's again something that I'm not personally going to be able to kill.
Fine.
Now you could extend that argument in a number of directions and make it illogical. Sure, go ahead. But I'm just saying.
I don't know what you mean. Sure, go ahead, make it illogical. What? How would I do that?
Well, I'm just saying. Okay, you say, well, you can kill a. Can you kill a? A panda? And I could say probably I could physically kill a panda. Maybe it's not so difficult.
The thing that's confusing. The thing that's confusing.
That's what I'm saying.
Here,
you could extend that logic to say that.
The thing that I don't understand is you're saying it's the difficulty of the cow. So you're saying like, well, if I had the means to kill the cow, then it would be okay for you. Is that right? It's like I'm just having a really hard time understanding your actual point of view. Is it the difficulty of killing the cow, or what is it? So if you had that, so let me ask you this. Let me just be very specific.
Yeah.
If you had the means to kill the cow and it was not very difficult, would it then be okay?
Well, I suppose I would have if I had a gun, I have the immediate. It's very easy to kill a cow.
So is
no,
it
I'm
yes
not
or
saying
no? I don't understand.
I'm not saying I would shoot the cow in that instance.
So it's not the difficulty.
I probably wouldn't shoot the cow. I probably would not shoot the cow. Well, the difficulty would lie in like butchering up the cow, cutting up the cow, and like,
okay, let's say that. Okay, so that's the difficulty
thing. That would be an enormous difficulty.
So let's say somebody else did all that for you. Then would it be okay?
Well, again, no. In this instance, in the morality that I presented at the beginning of this debate, no, it wouldn't be okay because I'm not personally responsible for killing that animal
Okay. Let me put it a different way then. Let me put it a different way.
Yeah.
Let's just say butchering the cow is super duper easy. For some reason, we live in a world where it's very easy to butcher the cow. Then is it okay?
I feel like, do you know who Wittgenstein is?
I feel like I really am trying so hard to get into to get to the end of this.
I feel like what this is like is it's like a Wittgensteinian kind of like, you're trying to pick the one thing. You're trying to nail down on one reason why it's not more difficult than a cow.
Okay, can I just re-ask the questions?
Yeah.
All right. So
sure, go ahead.
And you tell me if this is unfair, the way that I'm framing this. So this is where I'm coming from in my understanding, and so here's where I'm at. So you're saying, you initially said the problem with killing the cow was the intelligence and the consciousness, but also the difficulty of killing the cow, how difficult it would be to kill the cow and to deal with the cow's body. And so I started to press you on that. I started to ask you like, okay, so are you saying that if we took away the difficulty, then it would be okay? And you're saying like, well, you can't take away the difficulty because it's hard to butcher and all this stuff. And I'm just saying like, okay, I'm just trying to say, setting the difficulty aside, is it then okay to kill the cow? That's all I'm saying.
Okay, setting aside the difficulty, is it okay to kill the cow? Here's why I guess it's a complicated question, because if I've lived with that cow and I've raised that cow from a calf, then it's understandable that I have an emotional attachment maybe to that animal as well. I don't know how they feel about me, but at least I have an emotional feeling to that cow. So I imagine, again, going back to my first argument about like killing animals that I'm raising and like living at the hands of, I assume that would also play a factor in it. I don't know how that relates to the intelligence of the animal itself, but that certainly relates to my own feelings about the animal and where that animal stands for me on my spectrum.
But isn't that kind of the same? Isn't that just the intelligence and consciousness thing though? Like that's not an aspect of the difficulty of killing it. You're trying to like you know what I'm saying? Well,
I might have an emotional attachment
I know that.
to a particular chicken.
Yes, I recognize that.
Okay.
Fine, that's a separate kind of difficulty. I was talking about the way you originally spoke. You talked about the size of the animal. You said the cow is very large, and so it would be very difficult to kill. You know what I mean? Like.
Okay, so going back to, let's leave that aside and go back to the consciousness and the emotional attachment to the animals, because those were the two things that we haven't really discussed yet. Okay,
so. The cow is harder to kill for you because of the consciousness and intelligence level. Is that fair?
Because of the two things I just said. perhaps, in this hypothetical scenario.
So that's not a yes or no. So I don't even know. I don't know what that
level
means.
Of consciousness, the conscious level of consciousness, and the potentially emotional attachment I have to the animal makes it difficult to kill.
Okay, yes. So the intelligence level, the consciousness, and then the value the animal has to you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's attack that second thing real quick, because I'm just trying to eliminate all the things we can eliminate here. So are you saying that we should that the value of a life should be determined by what it has to offer to you, the value it has to offer you? Like if an animal is not your friend, then it's less deserving of life? Or do you want to take that back?
Wait, say that again?
So you're saying like,
do I want to say?
So you're saying one of the reasons. So you're saying the two reasons.
That's a slippery slope. You're saying this is in relation to the cow.
No, I agree it's a slippery slope, but that's not what I said. That's what you said.
Yeah, but I'm not applying this broadly to all species all across the world. I'm talking about the cow, specific to the cow.
I don't understand.
Because I'm in a close living I'm not closely living.
Okay, let's just talk about cows. You're saying that a cow that is not your friend is not worth as much. It doesn't. It's not as deserving of life because it's not your friend. That's what you're saying, right?
Well, that's part of what I'm saying, is that in that scenario, that's one of the factors for the cow continuing to live. Yeah. Another factor for the cow continuing to live is its usefulness to me.
So do you feel like there's anything wrong with the idea that a cow is more deserving of life because you know it personally? Is there anything wrong with that for you? I mean...
Well, I don't know why we're talking about the cow, because the cow was the animal on the farm that I said that I probably
do you understand how frustrated I am
kill.
Here? Because it's like, I just ask a question and then like, you will do anything.
And now it's time for a meditation moment with Cammy. Being vegan means pretending that you might be wrong about having compassion so that other people think you're listening.
But can we talk about a different animal?
No. So you're saying you would farm chickens and fish, but not cows. And the reason that I wanted to talk about cows was because I wanted to figure out why. If the reason I want to do that is because if we can nail down exactly what it is about cows that makes you not willing to do these things to them, then I have a full, clear understanding of what the attributes of a being are that you need in order to afford them the kind of
I
treatment.
understand your point. Can I say I understand where I think you're going, which is I think a fair point. And again, like, I'm not going to try to claim the moral high ground on this argument, because I feel like all of your points lead to a sort of like a place where there is maybe no moral high ground for eating that animal, because if you extend the logic to its logical conclusion, then you have a very solid argument for never killing an animal.
But so why don't you want to extend the argument to its logical conclusion?
Well, let's just go ahead and extend that argument to its logical conclusion. So what the place that we got tripped up on, and I'll just answer it quickly and move forward, is that like if my reason for not wanting to kill that animal is the usefulness to humans, then that maybe is a horrendous way of dealing with it, because then only the animals that are most useful to humans are the animals worth saving. And I would say generally that's how humans have dealt with animals. And maybe that's a fucked up general place to be, especially in the 21st century when we don't necessarily need to kill those animals to be healthy and survive and live. And I get that about veganism. I like that about veganism. I don't think we disagree, or I don't see those arguments, I guess.
For sure. I guess I'm just trying to understand the difference for you, what the difference is. Because like, if I was talking to somebody else, right? If I was talking to somebody who's like, somebody was like, I love steak. Fuck you, Cameron. I like steak. Oh, check it out. I'm eating a steak right now while we have this conversation. Then it would be a different conversation, right? I would be asking different questions. But you're telling, but from what I understand, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, because I'm still not clear on like, is the cow worth something to you as an individual, as a being? I'm not asking you like, what do humans do? What is the tradition? What are we used to? I'm just asking you, Chris, what are your feelings on these issues? And and that's all
I think
I'm asking.
the cow is what is the word you use? The cow is
individual.
The cow is unique. The cow is an individual. And to a certain degree, all animals are. And
so you wouldn't. And so I guess the thing I'm still not quite understanding is like, so why would you not kill the cow, but you would kill the chicken? Okay, there's the consciousness intelligence thing.
And I think it's a morally specious. I think it's not high moral ground. But the answer maybe is its usefulness to humans, and that because some animals are more useful.
Don't say humans though. Say to you, because we're only talking about
to
you.
me.
So so it's usefulness
to me
to you
on this farm. Yes, then they have more value. Their lives have more value than others.
Well, their deaths also have more value.
Their deaths have more value. Yes, because I eat them and I obtain their nutrition. Yes.
Then it sounds like you don't really have a big issue with the actual killing of these animals, and you don't feel like...
Well, I do. I'm saying I do.
Well, but you were saying in the case of the chicken, it's like they're so useful.
Oh.
Okay, maybe you do have an issue with the killing, but I guess the usefulness outweighs the
like the fish. Yes, in the example of the fish, yes.
Fish and the chicken, right? Because I just want to be clear on who we're talking about.
Although chicken, again, I don't know because I'm not necessarily on this around chicken.
So you feel very sure about
I would say
fish.
the chicken. I would probably also leave the chicken alive because the eggs are more valuable than the meat, and I would get my protein. I would eat fish more, and I would eat.
So it sounds like a lot of it has to do with the value that they provide to you, and
yes.
And so putting aside the value that they provide to you, then you wouldn't really have as big of an issue killing them. So if a chicken didn't provide, or let's say a cow didn't provide milk, right? And a chicken didn't provide eggs, then you wouldn't have really an issue slaughtering them, or maybe not as much of an issue, or you know where I'm going with that?
Could you use an example? Kind of, but
okay,
I mean,
so let's take the cow example.
Could you use an animal
let's
that
use the chicken. Let's use the chicken
use
example.
A different animal?
What do you mean a different animal?
Well, you're saying you're using a hypothetical that would never exist in reality, so it's hard to answer. I mean, I have to use those.
The reason I have to use those animals is because you're saying like, okay, you wouldn't necessarily kill a chicken because it produces eggs, and so what I want to know is if it didn't produce eggs, would you then feel okay killing it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just trying to nail down what are the attributes that keep you from, killing this animal.
Well, I probably wouldn't have it around, and I wouldn't even I wouldn't have it around. I wouldn't kill it because it wouldn't even be around me because it doesn't have a value. But why would you not have it around?
Is that because you don't want to kill it, or is that because?
No, it's because it doesn't have a value to me. It doesn't have.
So the killing itself.
Eggs. I would leave the chickens.
What about the
alone.
meat?
Yeah.
What about the meat though?
I'm not gonna go searching for it because I'm not respecting, it's not on the farm unless it's like. No,
I'm saying you're farming chickens for meat. You're just not getting eggs.
But I'm not. I wouldn't do that. Is what I'm saying. Okay.
So why not? Why not?
Because well, I mean, I guess it's complicated. It's like,
sure.
I don't like killing things personally. Me, I'm not a huge.
Most people feel that way.
Yeah, and again, as I said at the beginning, I think for me, my moral paradigm is like, if I can bring myself to kill the animal, then I will also eat it and consume its body.
Yes.
And nutrition. So again, that's why I wouldn't have the chicken around. It's just because I wouldn't want to be slaughtering chickens all the time.
So you don't want to kill. That's why.
I wouldn't.
What, you don't want to kill chickens?
I wouldn't want to. Yeah.
Okay. But with fish, it's okay for you personally. It's okay when it comes to fish.
For me personally, fish is.
All right. So now we're getting even more specific. We've
been there. Yeah.
So before you were saying you're okay with killing chickens, and now you're saying, well, not necessarily, right?
Well, then you took away their hypothetical value of the egg
you were saying
laying.
the hypothetical value was the
because
reason.
Then.
Well, but you were saying the hypothetical value was the reason you wouldn't kill them, though.
But here's what happens on a farm. Chicken, it raises eggs. It lives, however many years it lives its life out, and then it's gonna die, and then you eat it. It's like
but now we're having different.
No, let's not go there. But
but we need to go there because that's how you feel.
Of,
Hold on, we can't just not go there because that's the way you feel, right? So we have to talk about the way you feel because that's the whole thing we're talking about. So you're saying
okay.
The thing that's confusing me here is you're saying like, okay, if they didn't lay eggs, then you wouldn't kill them because you don't like killing things. But if they did,
because I wouldn't even have them around. I wouldn't have them around.
See, you're changing your answers here a lot, right? Before you were saying. You were saying you wouldn't even have them around. I agree. You did originally say that. And then I kind of pressed into that and I said, well, okay, why not? And you said, because they wouldn't have the eggs. They wouldn't have the value. And then I said, well, what about the meat? They could offer you the meat. And then you said, yeah, but I don't like killing things.
Yes, I'm with you. Yep, exactly right.
Okay, so the reason... So how is the reason that you wouldn't have the chickens around not that you don't like killing things?
Because in the scenario where they live a full life and they die, or they're like,
but you could give them a full life even if they don't have eggs and just eat the meat without the eggs. So like again, what you're saying basically is like if they're valuable enough, then you will kill them. Then you will, well, not kill them, but you will have them on your farm and breed them if they're valuable enough to you. But then on the other side, you're saying like, well, you don't want to do it because you don't like killing things. So I guess it's like, my understanding is like you're kind of weighing these two things. Just like you don't like killing things, but if they have enough to offer, then you'll do it. Is that the idea?
Well, in the scenario of the chickens, yes, that's the idea. It's that I'm keeping them around because they're laying eggs, and then at the end of their lives, I'm killing them because I can eat their meat and I can more properly respect the full essence of the animal. It's like we're going to consume the animal.
I understand that part, but do you understand
if they didn't lay eggs? Hold on. If they didn't lay eggs, I probably wouldn't keep them around at all because it would be a lot of work to keep them around for their entire lives, then only to slaughter them and eat them. That wouldn't be enough. That slaughtering and eating of the meat wouldn't be enough reason for me to keep them around and feed them for their entire lives. I get it. Should they provide no value? Okay, so is that clear?
Yeah. No, I understand, but that's literally what I said, right? You're just, I don't know why you're speaking so aggressively to me as if that's not what I just said. You're just like I'm saying something, and then you'll phrase it in like this way that's super. I don't know, like.
Okay, just what's the next question?
I just want to be clear here because the part that I'm not understanding is, okay, you're saying that it is the value that an animal provides to you that determines whether or not. I guess I'm getting really confused here because you're saying you. So just let me ask this again, and you tell me if this is right. For you, it's a balance between you don't like killing animals and the value that the animal provides to you. So if the animal is valuable, if the animal is valuable enough to you, then you will kill it. And
can
so
I add one thing to that sentence to make it more true? If the animal is valuable enough to me and worth keeping around,
that's the same thing
for its entire life. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Sure. Okay. Great.
Okay. So I have a real deep issue with that. Like, I don't understand how you can say like, well, I'll kill. I'm trying to understand. You're saying.
What's the issue?
You're saying, well. Like logically,
what do you feel like is your deep issue to that? Yeah, what's the logic?
Logically, for me, I'm having trouble accepting that, like, this idea that it's okay to kill something and like farm it and slaughter it for slaughter a species regularly as long as it provides enough for me. And I'm having trouble with the idea that on the one hand you're saying like, well, it is kind of wrong to kill things. It doesn't feel good to kill things. I guess you didn't say it was wrong, but you said it doesn't feel good. And presumably that's a consequence of it being on some level wrong. But you're saying like, oh, but I don't know, the taste of eggs, or I don't know, the taste of its meat, if it's, or the taste of its milk, if that's valuable enough to me, then I will do this thing that I don't feel good about.
Yeah, I think it's not a morally superior. It's not even.
Is it morally
like
sound?
It's a very human. It's a very species. No, it's not morally sound, and it's a very species.
But if it's not morally sound, then why are we
Oh.
having? What's the debate then? If it's not morally sound,
Well, it's a very species. I mean, I don't know what the debate is. I think it's a very species-centric way of thinking about life, because it's only, it's this whole it's what led to this industrialization of agriculture and just the horrible situation that we are in with meat, because we basically only value animals as much as they to the point at which they provide value for us, and we're okay with completely killing them and destroying them. And we don't respect the animals or their ecosystems or their value as well. I think, the farm is a small example of that, but I think, if you blow up that logic on the scale of humanity, it becomes a huge problem. On the farm, maybe it doesn't feel so bad because you're on a farm, but if you blow up that same logic to humanity level, it's a huge problem. And I think we agree on that point, and I think that's where I say, that's where it's a very morally murky place to be a carnivore.
Well, I know that, and I want to talk about the issues where we disagree. I don't want to talk about where we agree, because that's it's not fruitful for us. So the parts where we disagree, I think, are that like one thing I hear in the way you speak is this is kind of an unconscious perspective on animals, that they are all kind of one thing, and that not necessarily all one thing, but you kind of think of cows as being cows. And I don't know, it from, maybe I'm wrong, but it just sounds like you don't really think about individual cows. And you know what I'm saying? Like you don't really mind if a cow dies early or very young, because presumably, or maybe you do, I don't know. I guess maybe I'm just still not clear on your perspective. So maybe let me ask you,
I mean, I guess I am. I just I'm just not confronted with it, and in the spectrum of issues in the world, it's not at the top of my radar. You're certainly bringing it more to the top of my radar through our continued conversations, which I think is probably good. Just generally, I think it would be great for everyone to be on this podcast and be more aware of the systems in place, for meat and meat production. But
yeah, I mean, and I think it's just the whole. For me, the entire problem is normalization. Like, I don't think there are any real. I think there are a couple bad people, but most of it is just normalization of an idea, and it's just like, you don't have to confront these things, because nobody is going to make you confront them. You're not going to get arrested for supporting it, what is essentially animal abuse in the modern world, unless it's a dog, right? Like, you couldn't do these things. You can dream of doing this stuff to dogs, but it's perfectly fine for all these other species. And I don't know. So it's just like, I'm having trouble. Where are we disagreeing? Because you're saying a lot of things that are pro-vegan movement, but you're not vegan.
I think your point is, I think the issue is, like, I think what you bring up is true. I think this idea of normalization of this consumption culture, I think even it makes me think of that Adam Curtis documentary, Hypernormalization, where it's just like this kind of hyper-drived hyper-normalization
I haven't seen that
situation. He's a brilliant documentarian. This is about politics and about kind of the rise of Trump in some ways, but I think that idea, that concept of hypernormalization applies to this argument as well in my mind, and that it has become something that's so normal, so ingrained in the culture, so part of so many traditions and people and pockets of culture and diaspora all over the world, that it's just what we do. It's what we've always done. It's how we live. And I think where I agree with you is that maybe 100 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible. This discussion, even this idea, wouldn't have been possible, because we didn't have the. But in the 21st century, it becomes a much more urgent one with climate and with the ability to eat healthy in a vegan lifestyle. I think where we disagree is just in our, I guess, capacity to care and be reactive to these issues. And I'm not going to stand up for my lack of capacity to care about these, because that's not necessarily like, I can't really defend that. But I guess, you know, I don't know. I guess I feel, especially around, like, I was trying to put myself in at the beginning of this conversation, like, and I'm sorry if it went off the rails, but what I was trying to do was put myself in a, okay, good. I was trying to put myself in a sort of like, utopia situation where I was like eating what I felt was morally okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, to kind of get at what the moral questions were. And I think, and I would probably be pescatarian in that scenario, you know, like I would probably be pescatarian, and I would probably, and I think that's what I was trying to say. Maybe I didn't say it that way, or I did at the beginning. Like, I wouldn't eat these animals, and I would eat fish.
Okay.
And,
but then,
for these reasons, yeah.
But then I would still ask, I mean, I would still have questions though. I would still want to know, because for me, the fish thing is like, I think fish, like, I know that there's a reputation that, like, you know, goldfish have 3-second memories or whatever, which is not true. And there's a certain reputation with fish, but I've seen fish do crazy, crazy stuff. Like, fish can remember things from years and years ago. They actually have better spatial sense and better spatial memory than humans. So, I mean, there's different ways you can measure intelligence. There's different ways you can measure consciousness. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, like, okay, intelligence and consciousness, you said that was important. I wanted to know, like, well, how are you quantifying those things? Where are you, how are you, because one of the things, you also suggested that, hey, maybe fish are kind of more mechanical. Maybe they're just algorithms. And it's like, yeah, maybe, and honestly, maybe we're all just an algorithm. Maybe this whole experience is just an algorithm. But that doesn't, it's just like, okay, well, I can't.
That doesn't help us.
Yeah, we can't use that. We can't go out and do things based on the idea that it's all an algorithm. And so we have to just try to be logical within our own framework here.
Well, look, I will happily review, if you want to send me science and studies about the sort of level of consciousness of a fish, or what a fish can feel or think.
So is that what's keeping
my data is, but well, that's how all of our decisions are based on observation and living life and what we know,
right,
like, and culture, obviously. But like, of course, but like my observation with eating fish, growing up catching fish, you know, going out into the rivers of northern New Mexico and fishing and learning how to, you know, not catch all fish, but some fish, you know, it's like you don't always kill a fish. Some you know, we've done a lot of release catches as well, which obviously is, you know, not harmful to the animal as well. But like, you know, I've grown up with observation around fish and with observing those particular animals, and I feel okay. I feel on solid ground consuming those animals because of, you know, all of the things that we talked about.
Well, what did you observe? I'm trying to understand what you observed, because what for you sets them apart? Because for me they have all the hallmarks of a creature, a sentient creature that I wouldn't want to harm. They react to pain, they bleed, you know what I mean? Like, so where's the stupidity for you in them? I mean, assuming that stupidity is even.
It's not stupidity. Yeah, I wouldn't use that word necessarily, but I guess, I mean, it's hard to pin down, because I don't have the, I have a very rudimentary understanding of the brain. But I guess what I would say is just that it's, I think a level of a creature that it's at a level of, you know, is not aware of. I mean, I don't want to get lost in. Anytime we drill down, and
because I think that like as a culture, there's a lot of suggestion that fish are very stupid and whatever, and you know, maybe on some level that's,
well, again, stupid, yeah.
But well, I mean, essentially that's
compared to a human.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're saying, right? Is like, I mean, what's wrong with that word? Because we're basically saying. I mean, you're basically saying that, like, it's the level of intelligence, right? And so a very, presumably, you know, a very, what's the opposite of intelligent? You know, dumb, stupid creature. is okay to eat because it's dumb and stupid. Which, you know, obviously I have an issue with that as well. But I just wanted to maybe suggest that, you know, maybe fish aren't actually that dumb and stupid. And I'm glad to send you some articles that and some clips that I've seen that suggest otherwise. But I mean, I would also wonder if it's really fair to say that like the intelligence level of a creature is a fair arbitration point for deciding whether or not it's going to live or die. Especially in the context. I mean, for me, it's like it comes down to this. It's like, okay, fish suffer. I mean, I don't know. We've gotten into a lot of different arguments. I don't know. Like I don't know if you believe fish suffer, but they react to pain in a way that one would assume a fish would react if it were in pain. For me, that's all that really matters. It's like, well, I'm not gonna hurt a creature just because I want to taste it when I could eat something else. And it's just completely logical. And I've yet to hear any rational perspective that suggests that one should do anything else.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be interesting to explore like the production chain that is involved in producing some of these, maybe not even the meat of the animal, but the product of the animal, and just exploring, you know, how that happens even from the places where I get animal products or meat. I think would be interesting in light of this conversation because yeah, I mean, obviously there are some points where we disagree on, like, I feel like it's morally okay to eat fish, and we talked about the level of consciousness, and that's not convincing for you, and I'm not really able to provide more of an argument other than, like, you know, this sort of, like, we live alongside animals, and we provide for them, and they provide for us, and it's a sort of, you know, we can find ways of showing animals respect, but also consuming them, like, you know, but other than that, like as I said, there's not a lot of moral high ground, and I would like to be. It would be interesting to confront myself with what is actually going on in like the real world where I live, not just like the world of YouTube videos and industrial meat production, but like actually what I'm consuming. Like that would be very interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense to me. Why you would want to look into the actual process behind where you're getting those products. Yeah, I mean, let's see. I obviously can't force you to talk for too long, especially considering it's probably getting late over there. How are you feeling?
Feeling good. We went through some dark waters, but I think we made it through, Cameron. I don't know how you're feeling. How are you feeling?
Well, if you'll allow me to be honest, there is still ground I would like to cover, but...
Go ahead. I'm open to covering ground. Maybe for 10, 15 more minutes. Sure.
All right, cool. So, well, okay, let me ask you this real quick. You were talking about that you would want to find out how exactly the food you're sourcing is getting processed. So, which food are we talking about? We're talking about just fish now, or... We also eat cheese, or what do you eat?
You said you want to talk about fish. Let's drill down into fish. I think in my utopia, as I said, I probably would have animals around, you know, benefit seasonally, whatever and I would eat fish. Yeah.
But considering. Yeah, so I would like there's two things I really want to talk about. Considering we only have limited time, I'm going to try and pick a good one. So let's see, you're talking about in the utopian world, you would have companion animals that you would benefit from the products of the secretions of like cows and eggs, and you know we both accept that this is not a utopian world. And so I guess the thing that I want to drill down into is if we both know that this is not the utopian world, and I mean, do we both know that like the cheese and milk that we source comes from industries where cows are being mistreated, or Yeah, I guess I want to talk about cheese and eggs then.
You want to talk about like the moral ground of my utopian farm life, or the life that I'm
No,
currently
I want to talk
buying?
about like given. No.
Yeah.
Let's say I agree with your utopian farm life and
all
say
right.
like, that's okay.
You're like, that's okay. I feel comfortable with you being that way. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Given that, what about what about the current state of the world
it's
and
pretty
where the
fucked
money
up.
goes?
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up. I can't deny it.
But it's not fucked up enough though for you.
I mean, again, it's like it's fucked up to a point where what I'm trying to do now is like source things super, super locally. And you have a point. That doesn't mean that I don't know. I don't have firsthand proof what the standards are. So it's hard to talk about. I guess that's why I was saying earlier, like, what feels like my next step is doing that work, finding a way of sourcing that. That would be interesting.
Okay, so because we only have limited time, and I want to go quickly here. So, okay, I want to make this as effective as possible. I might like to have a second conversation.
But let's say I found out. Just fast forward though. Let's say I did that work, and let's say
what would you find out? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Let's just fast forward. Let's say I did that work, and I was like, oh my god, these cows are being, like milked for 20 hours a day and not led around.
Then
to
you would stop.
Farm.
Then you would stop.
Then would I stop if I found that the local farmers were abusing what I?
I'm just asking. I'm asking. Like, then presumably your point is that you would stop, right? Or no, that's not what you're saying.
Yeah, I think depending on let's say that was I think I would probably try to stop that, or I would find something else.
So I think your point is like, okay, there's some threshold where like if they're doing this, then I'm not going to support it if I find that out. So I want to know like, okay, what are you hoping that they're doing? What are you hoping that they're doing, or what are you hoping that they're not doing? Because for me, it's like there's no place in the United States where they're doing it right. And if there is, then that meat is that product is absurdly expensive. And on top of that, it's not available. But that's what I think based on what I see. But so what are they doing or not doing that makes it okay? You know what I mean? And different from the rest of the industry. Lots of land, or
I mean, I'm probably gonna sound ignorant here. Maybe I've sounded ignorant this entire time. I'm certainly apologize, but I just don't know. I feel like this is all going to be speculation. I don't know enough about even to like.
So can I get you to watch a documentary
Sure.
Okay, so there's on Netflix, there's this thing called Cowspiracy.
Okay.
That's all about like the dairy industry and just basically that's it. It's about what's going on in the dairy industry. I will think of I know Land of Hope and Glory is something Earthling Ed recommends, but I think it's a UK, like the footage is from UK.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I imagine it's quite similar to what they do here, but I'll try and find one that's like got United States specific information. So yeah, maybe that will help inform your perspective on things.
But I think to answer your question still, I mean, with that in light of not knowing that, I think if I found that if I felt like that the local farmers were raising cattle in a way that allowed them to live relatively peacefully, live long lives.
What about the slaughterhouse?
And not have a slaughterhouse, or not send their cattle not send the cows off to be slaughtered unless it's like the end of their lives and it's just
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like either way they have to go to a slaughterhouse to die, right? I mean, that's where they go at the end of their lives. So what about that?
And when is the end of who determines when the end of their life is?
Well, let's just assume let's assume that it's okay. Fine. Let's assume that like they've lived a long enough life in both of our opinions.
Okay.
Let's just talk about the slaughterhouse.
Yes.
Is there any problem with sending them to wait in this slaughterhouse? Because the slaughterhouses that there's only so many slaughterhouses. There's tons and tons and tons of animals. They go to the slaughterhouse. Generally speaking, they wait around for 1, maybe 2 days, maybe more. They are not fed because they need to not have stuff inside of their stomach during the butchery. Is there any issue? Like, let's assume they had the most amazing life. Do you have any problem with the slaughterhouse?
Yeah, let's say I do have a total problem with the slaughterhouse. Does that make it okay for me to consume their milk if I don't participate in the slaughtering of them, but I'm okay with the first part of their life?
Well, it's a question for you. Like, if you're asking me, then no, it's not okay to do that because you're still supporting that nightmare that they have to go through, right?
Right, at the end of their lives.
Right, but obviously it's a question for our individual selves. So is it a problem for you, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought about that particular scenario.
For me, it was just coming down. It was just accepting that, like, listen, I mean, this was my internal dialogue. It was like, this is what happens. The cows, this is the society we live in. This is the system we live in. This is the amount of demand that there is for this product. And this is how we supply that demand. It's through industrial farming. It's by not keeping cows around for longer than we need them to. It's by genetically manipulating animals over many years to make them produce more meat but not necessarily be as healthy or happy. It's through these processes. And for me, it's just like, I don't know. It's just very simple for me when you break it all down. It's like, okay, why do you need this? Why do you need these animal products? Why is it so important to the soul? Why is it so important to the human mind? Why is it so important to the psyche, to the ego? Why can't we just go without it when there are options?
Yeah, no, I think that's a convincing argument. I mean, another question I have is just, I guess here. This would be like, what is the world in which we use the cow, at the farm, or we raise the cows, we use the milk, or we extract the milk, and we don't kill the cow at all. Is there a scenario?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
That still seems like a problematic scenario.
What do you mean problematic? In what way?
Well, just like the industrial, like the level at which we have to do that, it seems like that's a part of your argument. Like, even if, okay, the slaughtering is horrendous, that alone should disqualify the whole industry from existing, is what you're saying. And then, but even without the slaughtering, that still wouldn't be okay because it's just the level at which we have to pump the cows full of hormones for them to produce the milk, to like sitting and just being extracted of their milk. Mm-hmm. Like that also is not okay as an industry, regardless of the slaughtering. Is that correct? Am I accurate? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of there's not a lot of good arguments to support like industrialized animal product extraction.
but everyone's still doing it though.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I would say is that, like, I don't know. It feels like it feels like, I guess, in a way that there's not quite yet an infrastructure for. I mean, just hear me out in this argument. I'm not saying this is a justification for eating meat. I'm just saying this is like, I'm strategizing as in like a vegan ally, I guess, in this instance, as like how to achieve maybe the results that you want to achieve on the long term, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, how is there, what infrastructure is missing that could be built that would support this, that it doesn't,
I mean, setting aside the fact that you cannot be a vegan ally if you're not vegan, the infrastructure will be made by the demand. So the infrastructure isn't going to, I don't think the government is going to suddenly be like, oh, hey, let's actually, you know what, guys, let's do veganism. It's going to be, everybody else is going to tell the government the veganism is the correct thing to do. And it's not going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, the infrastructure has to come from the demand that people are making, that taste makers are making. And so, that's why you need to go vegan, so that people see it, so that people see, Chris is a vegan. I see veganism is the thing. Veganism is the smart thing.
Yeah, I see that. Your argument is like it's change is incremental. It's like every person has to change, and then people will change the tide of history. I guess yeah, that's true. That's fair. I was just thinking on a larger, because I think the problem is so deep. I mean, even if you get to the point where I am, where it's like basically conceding the higher moral ground, but still participating in the system in some sense, like even if you get to the position that I'm at, I think like there's still so many other barriers for like going full in on veganism, and I feel like that. What? Well, I feel like a lot of them we don't need to have a logical argument about a lot of them, because it's not necessarily like, I don't think those arguments. Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think those arguments hold necessarily water. But I'm saying on a large scale they do, because it's, again, going back to my joke about the mathematics of change. It's like you have to provide you have to think about the infrastructure globally, and you have to provide an alternative. You have to find a strategy of getting there.
I don't know what you mean.
Huh?
I don't know what you mean. To be honest, I don't know what you mean. Like, an infrastructure for what? Going vegan is, not eating meat. It is choosing not to do something. There's the infrastructure is there for you to be vegan. You just have to choose to do it.
I'm talking about cultural infrastructures. I'm talking about change of deep seated traditions. I'm talking about policy making. I'm talking about.
I think we do need to change all those things, but I don't see. I guess I'm confused. What argument are you making?
I'm not making an argument. I'm just opening up a question and saying.
Well, it's in the context of me. It's in the context of me trying to figure out why you specifically aren't vegan, and you're offering this as kind of a.
No, I wasn't. This was not an argument of why I'm not going full in on vegan. This was
this is separate.
Yeah, this is just kind of exploring generally what are the challenges. Like, going back to me, like, let's say everyone got to my point, it's like, oh, okay, now I get it. I'm going to make I'm going to go full in on this vegan, and I have the sort of privilege of getting to that place. I think that is a privileged thing, because you have the knowledge to get there, you have the resources to do it. I guess so.
I'm the poorest person Chris. Well, that may not be true, but I guarantee I'm one of the poorest people so I don't know what you mean by.
I just mean like, okay, I don't want to get into this, because then I feel like you've gotten into this argument in other places. I don't want to get into that necessary argument, but it's like you've gotten to this place for whatever reasons, because you've had privilege, because you were poor and saw this one video, or somebody came and heard and spoke at your town and you agreed with them. It's like whatever happened in your life circumstances that were fortunate enough to get you to this place. You have a job, you're able to continue eating. You don't live in a food desert where the only thing available are processed foods, which is a real situation. Okay,
what is the point? What's the argument?
I'm saying, like, you got to this point, you become vegan. It's not enough. Like, saying that just that conversion is not necessarily enough, because
enough for what?
Huh?
Enough for what? I don't understand what you mean.
Well, because what I'm saying is, like, that happening is going to be very, very slim. Like, I think you have to whittle away at the.
I think that happening is critical. I think that happening is literally.
What I'm saying is, I think you have to also try to change these other larger institutions, like the rise of meatless.
Okay. That's. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you about that. It's just like you're offering that up in this context that I don't understand. I don't understand what your point here is. Like, I'm not going to argue with you and say that we don't need to change the institutions. We don't need to change culture. I'm just saying that doesn't mean anything in this context, because. For me, it feels like the insinuation is that, like, because there are these larger things that need changing, you going vegan won't be significant. Is that the underlying argument?
No, I'm not trying to make. No, that's not an argument I'm interested in making, because I think anyone can do. I think it's okay. I was starting another thread of, like, this sort of macro, just starting to question some of the larger systems at play, a macro discussion. But I'm not.
Yeah, I just don't understand what you're questioning, though. I don't understand
it's
like
not a question,
where is the.
Huh?
I don't understand what the ultimate. Okay, so you're talking about like some people are in food deserts, some people. I don't understand what your point is.
I guess my point was just that if you're fortunate enough to arrive at the point of sort of understanding that veganism is a sustainable way for you, you're already sighing.
I mean, you're saying fortunate enough. It's like, I don't understand what you mean fortunate enough.
Okay,
it's
let's put a hypothetical that most Americans are in. Okay, most Americans or most people a lot of people in other countries, they're raised in a cultural way. They do what the cultural practice describes. They eat meat because they have for thousands of years. Meat is considered part of their diet. There's not a lot of education around not eating meat. There's not a lot of education around veganism. All those factors contribute to that person not ever in their lives being a vegan. I'm saying those exist in America, and because those are so pervasive, I'm saying there's not a lot of like the opportunities for people to think that veganism is a sustainable lifestyle are very slim, and I'm saying that's kind of a problem in general for the movement. And I'm saying,
I guess I guess I just disagree wholeheartly with the whole sentiment behind what you're saying, but fair enough. I guess.
Okay, all right. Well, we can agree to disagree. That's fine. Well, I will watch those documentaries that you've suggested. I will continue to think about these points. I guess the thing, in my utopia, like I'm eating fish. Like again, in my utopia, I'm eating fish, and I'm eating animal products that I'm personally kind of responsible or that I'm close to in the production of. But again, I'm not doing that currently. I'm buying products from local farms in every instance. So I don't really know.
Yeah, I guess the part that's frustrating me is like I still don't. In your case, I don't understand why. I don't understand why you particularly are not going vegan. I'm not clear on that, but
because you feel like we share more of the moral arguments.
That might come into play. That might be coming into play. But I think another large component is just like I honestly just don't understand the answers. Because I feel like some of your answers contradict each other. Like on one hand, you'll say like you do care about you care about the animal. It'll feel like you give an answer where you're saying you care about the animals, and then in another breath you'll say like, but none of that matters if they're valuable enough to me or whatever. Like all of those morals disappear as long as I can eat cheese or whatever. And I'm just very confused about that. But
yeah, my theory is that you're probably not going to find a lot of people who are. You may never find an argument that is morally that you sort of agree with morally for reasons of eating any animal.
Yeah, I don't plan to find one.
Except for the ones that we've talked about, the sort of survivalist exception. That's the only argument that you're willing to kind of concede, I guess, in that. And that's an or the utopian argument, which I think you've also conceded. But
even that is to me not realistic because of how much space animals take. So like that was one of my caveats. Is like even if I can imagine a fairy tale scenario where I don't have a big problem, but even I wouldn't want that even. But yes,
because for one person, well, why? Because one person, if it's for you,
because for everybody to have, I mean,
for everyone.
I'm just saying, in that world, milk and such would be so very rare that in terms of human consumption. Anyway,
in terms of consumption, well, I guess it's like anything, Cameron. It's like, you didn't. I guess I'm not ready to say that right now, but you've given me a lot to think about, and I feel like we share a lot of the same morals. I need to continue to think about it. I need to like reckon with, I guess, my own moral.
Well, that's fair.
My own moral quandaries. I mean, I don't know I don't know what else I can say. Like, I need to reckon with
that's
those
totally
moral
fair.
quandaries.
That I understand,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand. I didn't recognize. I didn't know that's what you felt. I didn't know that you were reckoning with moral quandaries. It sounded like you were like, I don't know. You just sounded so confident about things, I guess.
Well, I try to speak. I try to speak with confidence.
Fair enough.
But I think I have been saying that. I've been saying, this is a reckoning. I mean, I think we all have to reckon with it. I think I have to reckon with it. I think, it's something I have to talk with my wife about. We have to reckon with as a family,
Yeah, I was wondering about
as
that.
a society. I think we have to reckon with it as a society. I think for my family in particular, being like super Italian. I mean, we're back in Italy every year. Like, there's no. I mean, veganism as a cultural movement is much larger here, than it is.
No, I understand. I think about that often, like the cultural.
But what I'm saying is, like, when I talk about cultural infrastructure, I mean that like every day of 365 days a year, Louisa's mom has a diet that is like so deep. Like, she knows how to cook so many dishes. So many things like that her mom has taught her, that she's learned through the culture. It's like, and all of those dishes involve animal products in some way and are non-vegan. And so like that would mean not only a relearning of the entire Italian food culinary culture, but like a relearning on a very local level of all these households and moms and grandmoms, like a whole new cookbook, a whole new set of, and then a whole new system to support that different way of consuming food. So
but that's what happens with every revolution, like slavery. Sure. A lot of people had to make adjustments. I'm not going to say it's exactly the same. I'm just saying, like, when there is an improvement in the culture, like in the case of slavery, a lot of people who had traditions that were seemingly quaint had to make serious adjustments because they realized, oh, this isn't as quaint as I thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm sure people are already moving into this space and like developing Italian cookbook, vegan cookbooks, 100%. 100%. There's, but like, that's just, I mean, we're getting into the specifics of what the cultural battle was. But,
thanks everybody for checking out the show. This has been Cammy and Chris. That's Chris on the piano, that hopefully is being recorded in a better resolution than I'm getting over the internet. But if not, you at least understand what that noise is. This has been Cammy. This has been Down Your Throat. If you're not vegan, you're a piece of shit. And see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Down Your Throat. I've been your host, Cammy. Check us out at downyourthroatvegan.com. Or don't. There's nothing there. But there might be if by the time you get, we may have done something by now. If you have any ideas, go to downyourthroatvegan.com and send us your ideas for what we should put on the website. This was edited by me. This music is by Friends Not Food. Yes, we know it's weird.
To your holy places.
Peace.